high-performing units. You have sheepdogs and wolves.
Today we're going to examine Christian Craighead's opinion on operators. What's it take? What you got to have? Where you got to come from? That's right, the Jedi of Nairobi. Bad dude, 1v16. Ha! Winner! Enjoy.
You cannot train to become a tier 1 operator. You're born to do it. You have to be really, really fit to get into past selection. But that's not enough. You also got to be really robust, not just physically, but mentally robust.
So I'm going to have to totally agree with my man and disagree. It's a chicken and the egg. It's weak genes versus a bad upbringing. It's nature versus nurture here, folks. I'm just going to say this, man. I grew up in a really rough household, but I also grew up on an exponential amount of athletics. It's a combination of the two. I probably got one of the worst physiological backgrounds to go into great selections like SEAL training, Army Rangers, Green Berets, SAS. You know, these are tier 1 units. It's the same selection, folks. Everybody got the same selection. So my asthma limits me greatly, but I overcame it by athletics. So I'm going to agree, man. You got to be born for this stuff. You got to be born in the right environment. Them cats with silver spoons don't make it. Them cats with no adversity don't make it. And them cats with no athletic background, very few make it.
But that's not enough. You also got to be really robust, not just physically, but mentally robust.
From the outside, special forces, tier 1 operators is like real life superheroes, real life, modern day warriors, from the outside. It really is that. And I'm curious as to what does it take to be in these special forces?
So when I'm going to say special forces, we'll just say SAS, SBS.
Yeah.
And then tier 1 US units, because special forces now is just a huge organism. But it takes, I think, and this is just the opinion of Christian Craighead, is that you cannot train to become a tier 1 operator. You're born to do it. You have to have this certain mindset, physicality, everything to be able to do it. No one, I completely deny if someone said, you know what, I'm super fit, super motivated, I'm going to get into the SAS. Maybe you will, but if you do, that means you always could have got in it. So you had that set up. There's some people who, no matter how hard they try, no matter what they do, no matter how qualified they are, no matter how good people think they are, they just can't do it. And the thing, it's a theory shared by a very close friend of mine, who I was in training with in junior para, another unit, and then the SAS, and that was his thing, is you're born to be in the SAS.
So what he's saying here, folks, is so many times in America, Britain, just across the world, you hear you can be anything you want to be. What he's saying is that's not true. You can't will yourself into being an SAS operator. You just can't. If you ain't got the skill set, the proficiency, the mindset like he's talking about, you're not going to make it. You can do all the training in the world and still not even get close to the level that you need to be at. Mental toughness. I'm a firm believer. If you don't grow up in mentally hard conditions, you're not going to grow up mentally tough. If you haven't missed a couple meals growing up, you don't know what it's like to go without food. If you've wrestled, then you know. I mean, shoot, you go a couple days without eating and wrestling and going to 2.5 hour wrestling practices, you getting after it. What he's saying is you're not going to show up and will yourself to victory in the selection course. But even if you can will yourself to victory in the selection course, you're not going to be able to get through the training needed. If you can't shoot, you ain't going to make it. If you can't run, you ain't going to make it. In SEALs, if you can't swim, you ain't going to make it. If you're not comfortable in the water, you ain't going to make it. So to think that a guy can come off the street and just will himself to get to where he needs to go isn't going to happen. What he's not talking about is those demons in training. I talked about those demons in the SAS, Australian SAS videos that I shot. Go check them bad boys out. But those demons are real, man. And them demons, when they come calling you, if you don't have some resolve and the mental toughness to deal with them, they're going to suck you up. And you're going to be on your way out. That's what he's talking.
And I completely agree with that. It's like, you're that setup. If you want to do it, you train, you work hard. Selection or being selected is, again, a lot of time I'm quite flippant about saying about being fit. You have to be really, really fit to get into past selection. But that's not enough. It's just a tiny bit of it, because everyone knows someone. Everyone who's done selection knows someone from their old unit who, Jonesy could put 65 pounds on his back and run 10 miles every single day, and he could do that or whatever, and he goes on selection and he lasts a week, just can't do it, and all these or people get further on. It's And everyone's the people. There's lots of people go, oh, he would definitely get in the SAS, and there's other people who think, oh, I don't know how he's going to pass, and they pass. But there's all these little hidden talents. There's the closet weirdos, or the closet ones who are running 10 miles at weekends when everyone's going, oh, what do you do? Oh, I didn't do anything. But really, they're nerding out over military stuff, or they're going running and stuff, hiking, and so you've got to. There's that X factor, but you got to be really fit, but you also got to be really robust. Not just physically, but mentally robust.
That X factor he's talking about is real. They need fluid thinkers out there, man. You're solving problems at a level and a clip that's unknown to man. And the problems, if they don't get solved, cause people to get killed in your unit or allow you to kill people in other units. I'm telling you, I've been out there. The speed of thought is astronomical. And I've also watched the speed of thought just cause people to shut down, turn off, and be incapable of functioning in incredibly stressful situations.
That's the other thing. It's just like the daunting thought of what's ahead of you, which people want to, circling back to what I said earlier, create these monsters that don't exist, and the monster eats them all up, and then when they face it, they either defeat it and, like say, go home. So that's and so that might be you're born to do it, and we could do some. They should do some studies. I wanted to do one, but I thought about it about a week before I got out. It was too late. Do like a study on types of people in the SAS and SBS. You got to be fit, motivated, robust, and being able to follow instructions and to assimilate information quickly. Because if we could have our way, selection would be like 2 or 3 years, so you could get all this information, but it's compressed into 6 months. So if you can't pick something up quickly, you're out of here.
So your ability to learn something in the SEAL teams and SAS, I'm telling you, it's astronomical. They're going to teach it to you today, and you got to be able to walk it tomorrow. And then on the third day, you got to be able to run it. On the fourth day, you got to be able to do it. And a lot of times it's going to be they teach you in the morning. You're going to walk it in the late morning. You're going to run it in the afternoon. And when it gets dark, you're going to be doing it for real. So as a wrestler, I know for me, I would drill a lot. If I got taught a new skill, like pistol draws, every day at home, like he said, I was nerding out on pistol draws. Have my holster, and I thumb the holster. I do 30 minutes a day, man. 30 minutes a day of pistol draw, 30 minutes a day of magazine changes. And then when I got on the range, my gun was just different. The other thing he's talking about here, he keeps saying robust. Everybody's going to ask, what does robust mean? Robust means it's your ability to function under an immense amount of pain. That pain may be a broken bone. It may be a torn ligament, but your body is robust enough that it can overcome that ailment and keep moving. And you guys are saying, oh man, like how is that possible? I'm telling you, man, I saw a kid on a broke ankle, shout out to Brant Feldman, roll for 6 weeks of SEAL training with a broke ankle. Passes, runs, his swims, and everything. Just robust, man. Able to take a beating and keep on ticking. Them Toyota Hiluxes, my guy.
If you was to take like an absolute physical phenom, like somebody, once in a blue moon kind of guy, the fittest of the fit, and he wasn't to make it, and I know this probably happens all the time.
Yeah.
What would be the biggest thing that was missing from the package that he had to make it into
He didn't really want it. He was probably, people like that, one of the things that they're in love with the idea of being in the SES. That makes sense.
Yeah, completely.
So they want to be in the SES. They want to be able to tell all their family, friends, swag around, I'm SES. They don't really want to pay the price for it.
Yeah.
And then people don't realize what the price is, and then they turn up and go, yeah, no thanks. It's like when there's guys who could physically easy. It all comes down to if you had to do it and you don't have to do it, and that's what makes selection hard. Is that you don't have to do it. So when you put a rucksack on your back and you get given a location where you're going to go, and you look and you see, if you can see, because the mist might be in, but if you can see it might be even worse. You see the distance of where you're going to, you can see that big hill over there. Yeah, you're going to the one over that mountain, I should say. See that mountain in the distance? Yeah. Well, you're going to the one on the other side of that where you can't see. Off you pop. And that's what freak people out. And then they go, it's not that. And if they had to, if you had held a gun to the head and say, if you don't walk there now in 4 kilometers an hour, I'm going to kill your family. I bet they'd be able to do it. It's going untapping that. The trick of selection is you've got to be able to do it. You've got to want to do it. And if you don't want it, you're not going to get it.
And not to minimize.
So selection is literally pulling on the purse strings of your soul. And a lot of people don't understand this, but when you get there, you can want it as bad as you want it, but there's going to be times when you're going to have to be willing to die. And myself, I passed out in the swimming pool. I saw it coming for 5 minutes, and I kept on moving. And I was in the swimming pool, and my tunnel vision started. I knew I was going to black out. I knew I was going to pass out in the swimming pool. And at no point did I say, oh man, I should quit. My point was I need to hurry up and get finished fast. And somehow, by the grace of God, Clint Bruce and Tom Rhino got me to pass, even though I passed out at the side of the pool. That's a story for another day. But you got to be willing to die. If you're not willing to die, you're not going to get there. It's just not going to happen. Because I'm going to tell you this, there may be 2 or 3 times in training where you get tested. And the outcome could be death. And if you're not willing to push it all the way past that limit and find out what that limit is, then you're not going to make it. Just not going to happen.
The aspect of the special forces and like, you know, how, you know, brave you guys have to be and the decisions you have to make and, you know, the position you guys are going into is insane. But that lesson's applicable to everything, like to success in life in general. Like so many people, they're so invested in the idea of success, driving the flash car, you know, being wealthy, all that kind of stuff. But the journey is just something they're not willing to take at all.
Everything has a price. That's the thing is if you want to be, and that's the trouble what we have now is like, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And then they're crying because in 3 weeks, they're not making 100,000 quid a month. And you're like, yeah, it's a lot of hard work, a lot of failures, a lot of test and adjust. And then maybe in 10 years time, you might be making that much money.
Christian just made a massive, massive point. The one thing that I'll tell you is you got to be able to overcome failure. You are going to fail so many times in selection. It's astronomical, man. You're going to have so many setbacks in training and everywhere you're going in life. And the winners find a way to overcome. They find a way. They just find a way to turn failure into success. They turn failure into learning, and they get better and they grow. But they don't ever internalize the failure, and it doesn't eat them up. Huge point right there.
They don't want the bits in between, the work and whatever job that is, whatever role it is. You're absolutely right.
The hard work and the graft, like the difficulty of it, that's something that no
one really enjoys it. They might, like, people will say, oh yeah, it was good doing that, but they don't. It was just good being part of a system. But here's the thing, you want to go in the SAS. There's always exceptions, but as a general rule, if you're going to go in the SAS, whatever unit you're from, whether it be infantry, support arms, whatever, typically the guy going for SAS selection is the fittest, the strongest, the keenest, the one who excels in everything, who gets good reports all the time and is like golden balls. That's the common thing, and that's great. So you go on selection, you work extremely hard, you pass this course which just has such a failure rate, and now you're in the SAS. But here's the thing, something you didn't think about and no one tells anyone, is you've now joined a unit where every single member is that guy, where you were the top of your 30 guys in your platoon. Now you're in a squadron or regiment where every single man was that guy.
One of the first things you hear when you get to the SEAL teams is everybody graduated from BUD/S and you're back at ground zero. I talk about SEAL training is kindergarten. SAS training is kindergarten. Selection is kindergarten. Kindergarten is the base level. Everybody went to kindergarten. In my example, I'd say, man, you're going to step from kindergarten to the NFL. And now you're competing with guys that have been there for 10 years, 15 years. You're talking about real Jedi. You went from being a Padawan to the land of the Jedi, and you still have a lot to learn. That's the every day you're going to learn. You earn your trident in the SEAL teams. Every day you're going to earn it, man. Every day you're going to fight for your existence. You're going to have to adapt, overcome. You're going to have to grow. And he's saying it to the T. I've seen guys get to the SEAL teams, and they thought the race was over, and they quickly found themselves on the outside. So understand this, man. Like getting there, I mean, that's 10% of the problem. The other 90% is staying there and thriving there and doing better there and growing and becoming one of the Jedi. Man, you're talking about a lifelong goal of achievement, the ultimate warrior of life.
Let's talk to that for a second, because I think that's something that people don't think about. Then you're in the top 0.001% or something and surrounded by how many people actually make through selection?
This is the number system I work. It might be outdated now, but for around about 200 volunteers, 8 is the average pass. Sometimes more people pass, sometimes less people. But from 200, that to me, it might have changed, but was the planning is 200 will start selection, 8 people will go to the squadrons.
And then you're sat there, you arrive with these guys who are just like you know, the best of the best of the best. What's that like? Is that a moment where you sort of, you know, that hits you and you realize that?
No, I think you don't realize it. I think a lot of people don't realize that. But it's good to be around people who are of similar mind. But again, it's the same thing. Everyone's different. And one thing is it's just my theory. Is even if you're in a combat unit, and it doesn't matter if it's Tier 1 Special Forces or common, I think it splits into categories as well. Because one thing I think I saw a lot, and as much as my theory, especially in high performing units, you have sheepdogs and wolves. So you're all working to the same goal. So you all got a common aim. But some of the people around you are sheepdogs. They can produce the goods if they have to, and they're there and they're selected, and that's why they're there. But there's some people around you who are wolves who have been trained into sheepdogs, and they're the different people. My theory is that a lot of parachute regiment soldiers in the SAS are wolves. Wolves turn into sheepdogs, and but it's like that in lots of different units. I'm not just talking about the SAS. I'm talking about lots of high performing units, and people will know what I'm talking about. Some people are different, and it falls into to make a really. I'm trying to make it as simple and as easy to explain as possible. Is just like there's people who are sheepdogs, and there's people who are wolves.
So what he's getting at here, even on an elite level team, there are still superstars, and those superstars are different, and they can be very different. Look at Tom Brady, Patriots, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That dude's a wolf. And even in the NFL, where cats are making millions of dollars, 53-man roster, that dude is one of one. Maybe the best ever. Think about that. In the history of the NFL, he may be the best ever to play the game at any position. That's what my man Craig is saying, man. Christian Craighead is saying. The goodness and the greatness go hand in hand. And believe me, you trying to compete, you better have your lunchbox packed, baby. Better be packed.
Characteristics that separate them.
I think the wolves are the ones that will do things when they need to be done without orders, off their own back, and with total aggression and commitment. And the sheepdogs will do it if they have to, but it doesn't mean won't do it unless the shepherd tells them to do it. There was a terrorist incident in 2019. 5 terrorists attacked a hotel complex. I turned up, thought people were dealing with things, could hear gunfire explosions, and then I said, Zach, police in there, special forces. No one's here yet, no one's in there. And there were gunfire explosions, and I was like, okay, I'm going in. I didn't know how many terrorists were there. I knew they had grenades because I could hear them going off. I knew they had automatic weapons because I could hear them going off. Did I feel disadvantaged? No. When I crossed that threshold, I felt like it was a heavyweight boxing champion going in against amateurs.
My man said it best. I was a heavyweight boxing champion. 1v5. Man, Christian, shout out to you, man. Great video. I hope everybody understands kind of the complexity of getting to the top. Everybody wants to play in the Premier League, play for Manchester United. Let me tell you something, folks. There's a whole bunch of factors that go in there, and it might take you 18 years to get to that level. And by the time you're 25, you don't have those 18 years to dedicate, because now you're past your prime. Shout out to you, man. Dang, Nairobi Jedi.